The protagonist begins by stating he was born into an ordinary family and lived a mundane life, with most days being uneventful. He believed he would pass away without experiencing anything extraordinary. However, this was not to be. One of the protagonist's eyes glows as he declares that everything changed. On the screen, a blonde character is shown, who says he discovered a game called Heroes of Destiny, and that's how he became the master of the world. Now back in his apartment, he is overjoyed because he is finally alone. It's not that he particularly likes or dislikes school. He simply turns on his PC and says that playing alone is enough to make him happy. In this digital space, he is the main character. He always favored single-player games because they offered the possibility of playing through countless storylines multiple times, even allowing for the use of hacks to overcome system limitations. It felt as though the entire world existed for him alone. However, with a sheepish expression, he admits that's what he thought, but now it's time for a fresh start. He initiates a live stream, and someone asks if he's really streaming in the middle of the week. The chat begins to tease him, questioning if he's a jobless individual who spends all his time on his PC. Then, a user named Agj sends a donation of 10, which, though not substantial, makes him happy as it's better than nothing. Subsequently, a user named DEA sends 1,000. He becomes confused and grabs the monitor. Everyone in the chat wonders who this peculiar person is, speculating that he will likely request a refund. However, the person simply asks him to check his email. Upon opening his inbox, he finds a message from the game's creator. The creator states he is a viewer who consistently watches the channel and is also a developer. He had previously created a game so challenging that no one managed to finish it during its closed beta. He wants the protagonist to play this game to assess its difficulty and provide feedback on whether he enjoyed it. The protagonist becomes intrigued by the claim that no one could complete the game, considering that even someone ordinary like him could become special if he succeeded. A prompt on his PC asks if he wants to install the game, and he immediately agrees. With that, a game titled Heroes of Destiny commences. A message appears, stating that the Kingdom of Roke was destroyed by the Kingdom of Jappal in 294. He is to be born as an insignificant soul in this era, and will become a hero to thwart the Demon King's resurgence. Upon ascending to the god's throne, he would be granted any wish. Looking at the in-game ocean, he remarks that the graphics are far worse than he anticipated, but acknowledges that for a game developed by a single person, it represents the best possible outcome. He then enters his name, which is Master of the Game, and a welcome message to the continent of Ellen appears. He finds himself lost in a forest. The game seems quite ordinary and peculiar, lacking a tutorial, but he is unbothered. It is then that he notices someone ahead, the village chief, who asks if he's a stranger and what he's doing there. However, the protagonist finds it odd because there's no dialogue box. Seeing a text input box, he wonders if the NPC can truly comprehend his words. He then instructs the elder to surrender all his money, threatening to kill everyone in the village. He anxiously awaits the elder's reaction, only for the old man to hit him on the head and ask what nonsense he's spouting. His character collapses and dies. He is bewildered, trying to understand if he can actually converse with the characters. The game prompts him if he wishes to try again, and he affirms he won't give up so easily. This time, when the elder asks the same question, he claims to be in need of food and drink and requests assistance. The elder, feeling sympathetic, leads him to the village and tells him to follow. He then enters the elder's house, where he is given a mug and told to drink it to calm down. The protagonist thanks him and drinks it, only to be poisoned and die in the chair. An idea strikes him, and he unplugs the internet cable from his PC, believing that without an internet connection, the game's creator would be unable to control the NPCs. However, when he goes to speak with the elder, everything appears bugged and strange. Moments later, a message declares he was killed for speaking nonsense. At that instant, he realizes that disconnecting the internet is not the key to winning. He then recalls that the game's developer was named DEA, but he's unsure if it's a person or a team. It is now 1:30 a.m. He decided to save since that was enough for one day, but he was impressed there was a game where you could talk to NPCs. It was almost as if this world of heroes really existed. Now it made sense why no one managed to beat it during the beta test. He opens his eyes before going to sleep, thinking that he was really getting excited. From that day on, driven by the desire to be special, he was absorbed into that game. As he progressed, he lost track of time. He was completely immersed, and this continued for 10 years. while the guy is Mana Maid, 10 years playing the same thing. In an office, someone calls for Waro-san. Turns out it's his coworker. She says she's already sent the files he asked for and the guy thanks her. Some time passes, and she congratulates him for finishing everything. Our boy thanks her as well and helps while she stands there, a bit embarrassed, not knowing what to say. She then asks him why they don't go out for a little dinner, just the two of them before heading home, and maybe have a second dinner after they get home. Her face clearly shows what she's hoping for. However, our Waro-san apologizes, saying he has to go home. The poor girl is left stunned. He says there's something much more important he has to do and waves goodbye. It seems she's disappointed again, having been rejected once more. She's been getting turned down for quite some time. I'll let it slide this time because today is the day he's finally finishing the game after 10 years, right? So let's see. Apparently, the night turned into morning. He's congratulated for being the first human to enter the ranks of the gods and for being registered in the Hall of Honor. Our guy is standing there all happy that he finally managed to finish it, but his smile quickly changes expression. After so long, he managed to do what he always wanted, to become, in some way, special. But on the other hand, his life was more ordinary than ever. Wouldn't it have been much more extraordinary to be with his coworker? Huh, you idiot. At least in the game, he felt like he had lived something entirely different. He remembers the characters like the Black Prince, Gisisio, Cardinal Cesar Labaro, and the witch Celestina Urin. All the characters were full of charm and unique personalities. The reactions there were so lifelike that he felt those people existed somewhere else. But now, rubbing his eyes, he knows it's all over, until he hears a sound. Looking at the screen, he sees a message asking if he wants to start a new adventure. But this is a very honest message, warning him that if he presses yes, he'll be teleported to the continent of Ellen, and after selecting it, he wouldn't return until the game was completed. Waro wonders if there's some kind of secret stage. However, with his mouse, which looks more like a brick, he says he's eager to go through it all again. And now that he's come this far, he had no choice but to move forward. Of course, he's transported to the continent of Ellen. At least, unlike other protagonists, he was 100% warned. A strange voice welcomes the master of the game. Slowly, he opens his eyes, wondering why his chest hurts so much. He couldn't breathe properly and had no idea what room he was in until someone next to him says he's finally awake. It's an old man with a mustache who says it's thanks to the high-tier potion he had reserved. The boy starts to open his eyes, and the man calls him Kalak-sama, but our confused protagonist asks who the mustachioed man is, leaving him unsure of what to say. As far as he remembers, the healer didn't mention this potion causing amnesia. However, the protagonist has a desolate look, clearly confused. The man then says he'll introduce himself again and states his name is Russell. The protagonist quickly notices the man isn't speaking Japanese, but he can understand everything he's saying. But the worst part is that he's still feeling the same chest pain since he woke up. Russell apologizes, saying it's his fault for rushing him. The chest pain was a side effect of the potion he gave him, but it would pass soon enough. He then says the boy will feel much better shortly, so he'll take his leave for now. With that, the door closes while our boy is left standing there, confused. So, some time passes and the candle goes out. He opens his eyes again and rises from the bed, going to the mirror. It's just as he thought. His body feels entirely different, and it's obvious he's in a different body. A body he has no idea who it belongs to. He can remember the 30 years he lived, but he can't even figure out his name in this moment. Looking at himself in the mirror, he wonders who in this world this person is. That's when the famous system window appears. Player name, Kalak Shikin, a noble with no profession, completely battered and broken, level 8, with a reputation of 3 stars and 14% approval. Additionally, he possesses the governing skills of finance, development, and military. What Kalak notices is that this screen looks very similar to the game system's interface. Now the whole being sent to the continent thing really made sense. He was in the main stage of the entire game, the famous continent of Ellen. He puts his hand on his chest and says he needs to calm down first. He then feels something strange. He beats his chest again and collapses on the floor in pain. This body of his was a wreck, and he had no idea why. But at least it was clear this wasn't just a dream. First, he'd have to get used to being called Kalak Shikin. He goes to the bed and keeps repeating to himself over and over that he is this Kalak guy. As soon as he thinks about it, the window appears again. He's certain this must be the kind of thing only he can see. At this moment, he's 15 years old and he decides now is the perfect time to gather information. After all, if he lets his guard down in this world, he'll be killed. He checks the system and sees he belongs to the county of Shikin. If the name of the place and his last name are the same, That means he's the direct heir of this land's ruling family. At least he was lucky in that regard. That's when someone knocks on the door, startling him as he wonders who it could be. He doesn't know how to react or what would be the normal way for Kalak to respond. He keeps repeating to himself that he is Kalak while saying nothing. Then we see that it's a girl outside. She brought a big steaming cup of tea, saying it's the boy's medicine. Realizing she's a maid, he decides to act with some dignity and tells her to come in. The girl steps into the room, asking for permission. Kalak watches her closely as she walks in, kneels, and offers the medicine. What kind of medicine is this? She just walked in and I don't see any medicine there. Huh, now I see it. She's saying it's nice and warm and that he should give it a try. Our boy, who clearly needs a gym membership because he looks malnourished, asks who she is. But then he realizes that asking this will make it obvious he's not in his right mind. The girl looks confused and asks if he's feeling unwell. That's when his system window pops up in his head and he says no. The system shows that her name is Leela. She's 23 years old, has a reputation of -3, and a very low approval rating. However, he notices something odd in the system. She's affiliated with the Viscount of the Hoser and Territory. Considering they're in the county of Shikin, why is that listed in the system? Moreover, there's something even stranger. She has an unusually high combat capability, way too high for a simple maid. For someone who's played the game, he knows these are definitely not the stats of an ordinary servant. She's standing there staring at him, clearly waiting for him to drink. But looking at the tea, he's already made up his mind. No way he's drinking this thing from someone working for another house. Leela asks if he's all right and insists he drink the tea, but Kalak just tells her to leave it there and go. She starts smiling brightly, insisting he drink it right now. Kalak grabs her hand angrily, suspecting she's about to force him somehow. But as soon as it's in his hand, he fakes a cough and spills it to the side. As the cup falls, he thinks that's enough. Once all the liquid is spilled, he won't have to drink it. But then Layla, in a display of Spider-Man-level reflexes, catches the cup midair, ensuring not a drop is wasted. Seeing her pull off the classic Peter Parker move, he has no idea what to do. He takes the cup back slowly while wondering what kind of reflexes she has. It would be bad if their eyes met, as she might realize he did it on purpose. As she stands up, he lowers his head and looks away. She places the tea on the desk, saying his medicine is safe. Meanwhile, he's lying in bed, avoiding eye contact with her. He knows there's poison in there and no way is he drinking it. He closes his eyes, thinking he has to do something about this situation. Just as he's about to pass out, she hugs him. She asks if he's okay, and Kalak wonders if he managed to dodge the situation for now. Looking at the system, he wants to know more about the house Leela belongs to. First, he sees in his status that he's the son of the Count's first wife, who's already passed away. He wonders if there might be some half-siblings from the second wife. He discovers there's one older him at 16 years old. That's when he sees in the system that the new wife's name also ends with Hiran. He immediately connects the dots and realizes this woman must have sent Leela. If Kalak, the son of the first wife, dies, the woman's son will inherit the title of Count. Strangely, the lunatic is breaking out in a cold sweat while feeling excited. As always, the game Heroes of Destiny starts off hard. He then tells Layla he's feeling much better now and thanks her, but he asks how the stepmother is doing. Leela looks surprised and says the Countess is very upset about the boy trying to take his own life. She pleads with him never to do something like that again. That's when Kalak understands why this boy was bedridden and in such bad shape. Judging by the pain in his chest, this guy must have tried to end his own life. He says he won't do such things anymore, and Leela replies that the Countess will surely be happy to hear that. He thanks her again and asks her to leave, but her expression changes, and she says he still hasn't taken his medicine. Now he's scared. It seems the damn girl won't leave until he drinks it. The problem is, she's there to kill him, and if he refuses, she might simply assassinate him. Right, even though he knows the game at this moment, he's just a fragile teenager. He could try yelling for help. What if she cuts him down before anyone arrives? He would definitely die. Before that happens, she's already turning back to him, and he realizes he might not have a choice but to drink it. But then he asks himself the obvious question. Why is she poisoning him instead of just stabbing him and running away? If that's her plan, clearly she can't draw attention to herself. That poison is a way to make it look like he took his own life. It's the same poison that farmer gave him 10 years ago. And Leela says that if he's having trouble drinking it, she can help. But there's something Kalak learned while playing this game. The worst will always happen, so it's best to be prepared. He's certain that even if he refuses, she'll force his mouth open and pour it in. The madman is blushing, saying this makes him really excited. Indeed, the game Heroes of Destiny never disappoints. Leela sits down and offers the tea once more. Suddenly, he grabs the poisoned tea and drinks it all. Layla simply watches as the effects of the poison finally kick in. As he expected, this was bound to happen. Now the question is, how will he get out of this crisis? There must be a person or an object to resolve this situation. That's when he remembers Russell mentioning having some high-tier potions in stock. He comes up with an idea and tells Leela to step outside and call for Russell. She asks why, and he humiliates her, asking if he really has to explain himself to a mere servant. The girl is shocked and quickly apologizes. When shouts and orders her to leave and fetch Russell, she rushes out. Calac knows that the potion Russell used earlier could be traded for Castle. Yet, the man didn't hesitate to use it on him. At the very least, he seems like someone who isn't trying to kill him. As soon as Leela leaves the room, he hits up and tries to vomit, but no matter how hard he tries, nothing happens. The game wasn't going to make things that easy. One thing was clear. There was always a solution to every problem. He begins searching through all the drawers, desperately looking for an answer. But the system warns that his eyelids are growing heavy as his consciousness fades. He continues searching, tossing books and rummaging for a solution, until his eyes grow heavier and he collapses to the floor. He wonders if he'll restart the game from the beginning or truly die for real. That's when he sees something right in the middle of the shelves. There's a potion. His expression changes upon spotting it. He starts crawling, finally grabbing the bottle, but upon opening it and taking a sniff, it's not what he expected. It reeks terribly like rotten milk, and that's exactly what it is. Spoiled goat milk. He remembers that in the game, yogurt was the antidote for this poison, but can spoiled milk really be considered yogurt? The system once again warns him that his vision is fading. He knows that after the third alert, he'll have only 1 minute left. He brings the drink to his mouth, vowing to get even with Leela, and then he drinks it before losing consciousness again. Sometime later, he wakes up with Russell asking if he's all right. As Calac opens his eyes, he has no idea if it's déjà vu or if the game reset. But Russell doesn't understand what he's talking about and points out something more pressing. He wants to know why the room is such a mess, and why the boy was sleeping on the floor when he came in. Calac realizes the game didn't reset. He managed to survive, but that near-death experience is something he never wants to go through again. No matter what happens, he is determined to live. Now that this is settled, he needs to check the status of this man. He observes Russell and the system window appears. At the moment, Russell is the acting count of this land because the previous count died and hadn't chosen an heir yet. Even though it's a temporary position, it's something that could help him. The man seems like a strict military type, so Calac believes he can be trusted. At least he was the one who saved him with that potion. Calac calls out to Russell, saying he has something to share. They talk for a while, and it seems Calac tells him everything about what's happening. But Russell says there's no evidence. Calac learns that the potion Russell used was standard protocol in this family. It was just following normal orders. Russell explains that to him, all heirs of the Shikin family are equal, and he is obliged to serve both sides. Calac then asks if Russell wants him to keep taking that medicine until he dies so everyone can claim the inheritance. But Russell questions if Calac really lost his memory. He should know that the Shikin family is in serious financial trouble. In fact, it's a blessing that the Dilla family is helping them. He asks if the boy truly doesn't remember this or is just pretending. Calac realizes Russell won't act without concrete proof. At least he figures the woman who poisoned him must believe he's dead. He tells Russell to let it go, saying it's fine. However, he has a simple request. Russell nods, sensing something different in the boy's demeanor. 4 hours later at Shikin Castle, someone moves across the rooftops. The figure stops at the top of one of the buildings, adjusting their face covering. The person observes the knights below. It appears to be Leela, who notices that security has been significantly increased. She glances at the wall, spots a tunnel, and in the next scene she's inside the castle approaching a door. She sees there are no guards outside the room. She opens it, and inside she sees a body covered with a sheet. Still, she's not entirely sure if Calac is dead. At least she used a special poison, so he must have died painlessly. She takes a letter from her pocket and places it on the desk. She retrieves his seal from a drawer and stamps the letter. With everything in place, she only needs to leave safely. But suddenly, someone comes up behind her and places a sword to her neck. She instantly recognizes the voice, but the person says nothing, and she can only fear the blade slitting her throat. She pleads with him to wait and screams, claiming it's too late. Lord Calac is already dead, and now the Shikin family can only belong to the Grumbine family. Of course, it's Russell standing behind her observing everything. She falls silent for a moment, then she asks if he shouldn't just be a simple noble serving the family. But that's when the boy stands up and says it all went exactly as he expected. The foolish girl is startled, isn't she? Our guy says that the slow death poison is quite stimulating, but he finds it interesting how one noble family is trying to poison another. He's certain that if this came to light, it would turn into a complete mess. Suddenly, Leela crouches and pulls her arm out of Russell's grip, but as soon as she tries to turn away, he grabs her arm again with a swift turn and a strike to the ribs. She stumbles, revealing her thighs. Kalak knows that the difference between their skill levels is 3 stages. Clearly, she stands no chance, but Leela insists, saying he has no physical evidence so no one will believe him. However, Kalak calmly replies that attempting to assassinate a noble is punishable by death, even if the assassin is a noble themselves, and his evidence is clearly right there on the desk. When it comes to witnesses, he points at her, saying there's one standing right in front of him. Suddenly, her expression changes, and the poor girl begins to faint. She collapses to the floor, leaving him unsure of what just happened. Russell explains that she fainted. He places his hand over her body and observes a strange orb of mana. Our boy recognizes it as what's known as a mana hole. Russell explains that she likely doesn't know how to use any mana breathing techniques. She's probably at the level of an elite soldier with good training. Russell, however, notices something odd. Kalak doesn't seem impressed by this information, suggesting he already knew about it. He recalls the boy mentioning he had a simple request. Now, Russell wants to know how much this kid already knows. Kalak says that for now, they need to imprison her because they have many favors to ask later. The devilish maid is tied to a chair. Her arm looks like it's about to poke out. As he tosses a potion at her, our girl even wipes her face clean. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied to the chair. Kalak immediately mentions the slow death poison. Obviously, it kills within 3 to 6 hours. It's the ideal potion for anyone looking to end their own life. He speculates that if he died like that, everyone would think it was by his own choice. He grabs her face and asks why she did it. She feigns ignorance, pretending not to understand what he's talking about. But Kalak says he's sure she was afraid of dying, which is why she acted the way she did. This means she doesn't have enough loyalty to lay down her life for Lady Stella. But the girl remains silent. He tells Russell to make her talk. Russell pries her mouth open and sees something in Kalak's hand, wondering what it is. But Kalak just tosses it into her mouth, and she immediately smells something strange. It's probably that same goat milk again, and he orders Russell to make her drink it. She screams in the chair, trying to break free, but it's no use. When Russell lets go, she screams, asking what they made her drink. Kalak casually says it was just a little bit of poison. Then he asks if she's familiar with something called S-class puppet poison. Terrified, she claims it's impossible, saying there's no way a noble from a family like his could get such a thing. But Kalak says that with enough money, you can do whatever you want. To prove it, he mentions that the primary ingredient for the recipe is white radish. Russell seems impressed while Kalak just waits for her reaction. Leela insists she doesn't believe him, but the protagonist is certain she's scared out of her mind. She then says she'll leave for now, report to her master, and say the assassination was a success. She questions whether he really thinks she'll follow his orders, but Kalak simply asks if she's ready to die. As S-class puppet poison has over 3,000 different antidotes depending on the formula, and the correct one for what she drank is stored in his mind. So if she doesn't want to die a stupid death, she better listen to him. The girl is breathing heavily, clearly shaken, but he demands her answer. After hesitating for a moment, she shouts that it's fine and asks to be untied. But Kalak remarks that she seems awfully angry at the person who's saving her life. She's trembling, almost crying in the chair, begging to be released. Russell finds it strange that she suddenly decided to comply, and there she is, pleading for mercy. Kalak knows it's just the spoiled goat milk wreaking havoc in her stomach. She pleads with Russell to untie her, but Russell hesitates, questioning whether Kalak has forgotten that she tried to kill him. The boy responds that she's a very valuable witness, and they'll need to treat her with a bit of dignity. Russell has no idea what he's talking about. Meanwhile, she keeps begging to be released. She's on the verge of tears, seemingly about to explode, pleading for freedom. Time passes. She eventually announces that she's leaving to report that the assassination was successful. She leaves the room. Now, Kalak knows he'll have to deal with someone else who can control all the knights. That person is standing right beside him, Russell. Liam demands to know how Kalak obtained all this knowledge. The fool is about to say he learned everything from books, but realizes Russell wouldn't believe that. Russell warns him that explaining such things through a book would be akin to signing a death sentence. Now, Calic is unsure what to say. No one will believe him if he claims he's from another world. He then asks Russell if he remembers the dagger he plunged into his own chest. Russell says he does, but wants to know why he's bringing it up. Our boy explains that the dagger is actually a heroine passed down from his mother. She claimed to possess mysterious powers, and it seems those powers have now awakened within him. Russell doesn't look convinced, but Calic says he never imagined the secret to gaining such knowledge was to strike his own heart. The butler insists that if it were such a rare item, everyone would know about it. Calic thinks for a moment and asks if he's heard of the Dagger of Claw. Russell has, as he asks if the previous lady's dagger really was that artifact. If it was indeed that treasure, it could explain Calic's vast knowledge. However, Russell says there's one issue. He wants to know if anyone else knows about this. Calic assures him that no one does. He's the first. You asked Russell what he thought about Leela's story, specifically the idea that all of Count Claw's movements, his father's movements, had been leaked. A knight like his father, who was on the verge of advancing in rank, shouldn't have died to a mere monster attack. It's ridiculous to believe such a story. Russell immediately realizes Calic is seeking his help, but in the political games of succession, Russell has no intention of getting involved. However, if the Count's death truly was premeditated, that changes everything. Yet, gripping his sword, Russell debates internally. As a soldier, he doesn't want to get entangled in politics. This principle has guided him for 50 years. Just as he's about to express this to Calic, the boy suddenly shouts, demanding to know why his father had to die. All he wants is to understand why his father was murdered and who was behind it, obviously so he can start planning his revenge. He asked Russell if he isn't curious too. Whoever it was, they already know was someone who stood to benefit from his death, but they can't give up just because the situation seems difficult. He pauses for a moment and asks if it's truly right for a knight to serve a family that orchestrated an assassination. Russell freezes for a moment, then he kneels and swears loyalty to Calic. Our boy is thrilled, but here's Russell add one caveat. By doing this, he is abandoning the beliefs he held for 50 years never to involve himself in politics. But Calic is just happy to gain someone so powerful as an ally, especially one invested in the vengeance he seeks. He tells Russell to rise, saying he doesn't need him to swear loyalty to someone who doesn't even hold a title. But Russell reassures him, saying he'll ensure the boy grows strong. Our guy quickly changes the subject, not wanting this conversation to lead to Russell suggesting training him. He then says that now that they know about the Count's poisoning attempt, everything is falling into place. They're only at the beginning of their revenge. Russell asks how he can assist. Calic is about to reply